To fully understand the firearm safety rules that we use in the film industry, I gotta take you back in time. The year is 1965 and Hollywood is bustling. Thunderball is in theaters, and the West Coast unions in the studios have a new union contract. And if you scroll down about 3/4 of the way through that contract, you'll come to this clause. The producers will establish a Contract Services Administration trust fund for the purposes of, among other things, the administration of safety programs and studies within the motion picture industry. And that one clause solved a really big problem in the film industry. You see, we've been filming with dangerous equipment, performing stunts, and using firearms on set since the very beginning. But there were no rules. If you wanted to film something, you just did it, even if that meant putting someone in danger. So this new safety committee organized itself and started publishing safety bulletins. And the first safety bulletin they produced was this one, titled Recommendations for the Use of Firearms, Blanks, and Dummy Rounds. And if you work in the industry, you've seen this attached to your call sheet anytime there's firearms on set. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about using firearms and prop guns safely on set, covering what's in this bulletin, but also the best practices for what isn't covered in there. But before we get started with the details, let me ask you a simple question, maybe even an obvious one. What exactly is a firearm? It seems like a dumb question, but given the huge variety of weapons that get used on screen, it's a fair one. For example, is this a firearm? Is this? How about this? It turns out none of those were firearms, but this is, and so are these. A firearm is any weapon that's capable of firing ammunition, or in our case, blank rounds. So if it's a pistol, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, or even a muzzle loader like these old muskets, and it's capable of firing, then it's a firearm. The items I showed you before were non-functioning prop guns. They could be rubber doubles, replicas, or airsoft guns. If they can't fire ammunition or blanks, then they're prop guns. If they can fire ammunition or blanks, then they are firearms. But if they're not shooting blanks, how do they get this muzzle flash and those ejected shell casings? We'll talk about that more in a little bit. So if firearms can shoot ammunition or blanks, that leads to the next question. What's the difference between ammunition and blanks? And to answer that, we need to dive into what makes ammunition, well, ammunition. There are literally hundreds of different kinds of ammunition. But let's simplify them down into something basic, because all ammunition share the same traits. There are 4 parts to all ammunition. There's the casing, which holds everything together. There's the primer, which contains a very small explosive that goes off when it's struck. Inside the casing is the propellant or gunpowder. And lastly, at the front is a projectile or bullet. All of these parts put together make one round of ammunition. When the primer is struck, it creates a very small explosion, which ignites the propellant. This propellant creates gas, which expands, forcing the bullet down the barrel of the gun. A blank has most of the same parts, but instead of having a projectile, the ends of the casing are simply crimped down so the propellant doesn't get out. So when the hammer hits the primer, it ignites the propellant, but instead of pushing a projectile down the barrel, all that comes out is the expanding gas, some unignited powder, and a loud bang. And there's actually a third item you may see on set, and that's a dummy round. A dummy round has only a casing and a bullet. There is no primer and no propellant. Commonly, a small BB is placed where the propellant would go. That's there so when you shake a dummy round, it makes a clicking noise, so you can differentiate it from ammunition. Dummy rounds are used on camera when the audience needs to see ammunition on screen. This might be for a scene where the actor is loading a weapon or handling ammo. So on a film set, we can have blanks and dummy rounds, but you can never have any ammunition on set. Never. Ever. Ever. There is no ammunition allowed on a film set, under any circumstances. And ammunition should never be stored anywhere near blanks or dummy rounds, even when they're off set. Mixing ammunition and blanks and dummy rounds is absolutely forbidden. So now that we know the basics, who's in charge of all of this? The person in charge of all weapons on set, whether they're firearms, rubber doubles, replicas, or airsofts, is the prop master. Now, if your prop master doesn't feel comfortable with this role, you can hire an armorer. An armorer is an experienced specialist who works under the prop master and be given the responsibility for all of the firearms and prop guns. For simplicity, I'm going to refer to the person in charge as the prop master. The other member of the crew that has a responsibility regarding firearm safety is, of course, the first assistant director. The prop master will conduct their inspection of the firearm in front of the first AD and demonstrate that there are no obstructions in the barrel. It's the first AD's responsibility to announce when there are weapons on set and what their status is. It's the prop master who deals directly with the talent. No one besides the prop master, first AD, or the talent has contact with any of the firearms or prop guns. So now that we know who has what responsibility, how do we start the process of using these firearms and prop guns on set? After you've received the weapons from the rental house, the firearms should be secured in a locked container that only the prop master has access to. Before the scene is ready to shoot, the prop master has a training session with the talent. This training could be a short tutorial on set if the scene is really simple, or a more advanced tactical training session if the scenes contain a lot of weapons work. When you're ready to shoot a scene, the first AD holds a safety meeting with the crew, where the AD will describe everything that's going to happen and the safety procedures that are in place. Eye and ear protection is offered to the crew by the prop department. Before the firearm or prop guns are given to the talent, the prop master inspects the weapon and shows the first AD that the firearm is clear. The AD will then announce to the crew on set and on walkie that there's a weapon on set. If the weapon is loaded with blanks, it's called a hot gun. If there are no blanks involved, it's called a cold gun. Rehearsals are next. All rehearsals should be with cold weapons, preferably with rubber doubles. The safe distance from the muzzle is 20 feet. That means anyone within 20 feet from the front of the firearm could be hurt. Also, talent should be instructed never to aim the weapon directly at another person. They should always cheat their aim away from the person. Once the weapon's in the hands of the talent, the cameras roll and you shoot your scene. When the take is over, the prop master retrieves the firearm from the talent and they clear the weapon, recovering any unfired blanks and ensuring that there are no barrel obstructions. When the firearm is clear, the prop master tells the first AD that the weapon is now cold, and the first AD announces that to the crew on set and on walkie. And if you need to do another take, you repeat all of these steps from the beginning, minus the rehearsal. You can do this all day long if you want. As long as you're following the procedures, there is no limit as to how much blank firing you can do on a set. When the scene is done, the cleared firearm is returned to the locked container. The prop master should determine if the firearms need to be cleaned or maintained, and do so if needed. And the great thing is, if you follow these procedures, you are virtually guaranteed that no one is going to be hurt on your set. Indeed, every notable instance of serious injury or death on set involving firearms, at least one of these rules was broken. But what if you want to use prop guns like an Airsoft? Airsoft guns are metal replicas that shoot small plastic BBs and are used to play military games much like paintball. They are extremely realistic, but they are not firearms because they can't fire blanks or ammunition. You should still follow all of these procedures, even if you're just using replicas or airsoft guns. There should still be a safety meeting, the first AD should still inspect the props should still be cleared, and so on. I've been using airsoft and replicas on a lot of my shows, and they've been great. Even though you're still following all the firearm safety rules, the process generally moves a little bit faster. They're powered by a CO2 cartridge, which can go for many takes without reloading, unlike blanks. And also, most of them don't eject shell casings, so there's no reset time after the take. Of course, you're going to need to use CGI muzzle flashes and animate shell casings, but those effects are really cheap and easy to do these days. So if your director approves using replicas or airsoft, you will definitely see a time benefit on your set. That said, if reality is important and you want to use blanks, now you know how to do it safely. A couple of caveats. These procedures are only the film industry's rules. They are not laws, so you should check the laws where you're shooting to see if they add any restrictions to your set. Also, always have proper film permits, especially when you're working with firearms. There are too many instances where a cop comes around a corner and sees an actor with a gun and tragedy follows. So now that you know how to shoot your scene safely, you're going to need a way to schedule those scenes. ThinkCrew is collaborative scheduling software that allows you to quickly schedule your show with powerful tools like AI scene descriptions, movable panes, calendar views, and drag and drop in your day out of days. Sign up for ThinkCrew for free today and start using a tool that's as professional as you are. Hey, thanks so much for watching. This is part of a series of videos that I'm actually producing on set safety. So if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and turn on alerts so you don't miss any of those future videos. And that's it for now. So thanks for watching. That's a wrap.